guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig and it is episode 7 of Talk Magic, and I am here with the multi award winning, and I know a lot of magicians say that but they can't back it up, but this guy can, the multi award winning Shawn Farquhar. How you doing, Shawn?
I'm good, Craig, and how are you?
I'm excited. I can't believe I've got the world champion of world champions on the show with me. Thanks so much.
I'm talking to somebody. Yay!
It's fantastic having you on the show. There's so much we can talk about, and I think the first thing I want to say is, how you doing? How is the pandemic treating you?
If I were any better, I'd be twins. I'm doing good. It started off a little rough like everybody else. Then I found my groove and been doing things I never expected I would do, and organizing, working on new projects. First time in my life, I thought I'd actually write a book. I didn't think I was ready for it yet, but I am. And created a whole bunch of new magic. Got excited about life, and I got bored about sitting around and decided to rent my own building and start building a theater. So yeah, I've been good.
You know what? I want to talk to you about the theatre thing. I want to start off, though, by just talking about how you got into magic, because, I've been in magic a long time. And ever since I first started in magic, everybody talked about Shawn Farquhar. So it feels
You're saying I'm old, is what you're saying.
Basically is what I'm saying, yeah. But it feels like you were born with a top hat and a cape. And the second you were born, you had this... Shawn Farquhar, the magician, was here. But when did you get into magic? How did it happen?
Well, my catchphrase that I've used in a billion talk show interviews is, I've been doing magic all my life. When my mom says, when the doctor slapped me, I said, pick a card. I was probably really about 5 years of age when my father started teaching me. Before then, I was watching my older brother, Scott, learning. And so I kind of was studying stuff, and trying to understand it. And I was just surrounded by magic as a little kid. But about 5, I started doing my Vanishing Nickel stuff. And by the time I was 7, I had like a show. I was always around magic, not around magicians. My dad didn't hang out with magicians, but we were always on the road someplace. And my dad was always building props for me. So I had Candle Through the Arm when I was 8 years of age, the Vanishing Banana when I was 7. And I had the Temple screen, Temple of Benares and all that stuff. And I probably was 8 or 9 when I started selling tickets to my curtained off backyard to watch me do shows. Entrepreneur from the start. I was probably 13, 14 when I teamed up with a couple of friends, Greg Fielding and Pat McMahon and those guys. And we started producing Wolf Lucky. We started doing a bigger show and building props, illusions and stuff. And we looked at the Masculine Brothers and their spirit cabinet. We built one with shag carpet in the inside to hide where the slits for the arms went through. Probably 15, 16 when the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, a lady, Annabelle Stewart, saw me and asked if I wanted to do some short little segments for television with no budget, no pay, and jumped on that. Next thing I knew, I was a TV star. And I was doing TV stuff, and then got to open for some country and Western singers by the time I was 16. Moved to the other side of the country, and told my high school teacher that when I graduated, I just wanted to be a professional magician. So they sent me to counseling. That was nice. Career counseling, yes. And they told me, I did the aptitude test, and they said I'd be very good at janitorial services. So that's what they told me. So I've been doing this forever. So when you came into magic, yep, I'd probably already been doing it for a couple of decades, I guess.
So did you go full-time straight after finishing school? It was straight into full-time magic?
I was full-time before school ended.
Yeah.
I kind of left and was making a living and doing the school thing as the extra thing. Moved from my parents and moved out and did high school, my last year of high school in British Columbia while my parents were on the East Coast in Prince Edward Island. Lived in a motel with the rabbits and birds, got kicked out of motels because of the rabbits and birds, and studied to be a sous chef, started as a pizza cook and then a broiler cook, prep cook, sous chef. Got to be a chef for almost, I think, a week before I had a nervous breakdown. That was special. Then got a job working for a place called Northwest Biological and Chemical Laboratories. The guy there, Dick Stratton, was really cool. He must have taken in a couple of hundred applications for the job working in a laboratory. But I sent in my promo package. Picture me cutting a girl in half, floating her on the three-sword suspension. And I got the call to come in because I was weird. And they just said, what's with the pictures? I said, oh, this is how I apply for all my jobs. And they hired me. And I started in the mailroom, packing boxes, then moved up to stuffing fetal pigs and formaldehyde cats and sheep eyeballs. Yeah, that was really fun. And a friend of mine was nice enough to teach me all about printing. And so I started learning on an AB Dick 40. And so I learned about printing and making metal plates. And I loved the printing stuff because it had something to do. Everything I did was for magic, but all the time I was doing it, I was still doing shows in clubs underage and paying my rent, not from the job I had, but from the money I was making on the other stuff. And then I went to the PCM convention in 1984, Pacific Coast Association of Magicians, and I competed. And boy, was there a field of magicians. It was the Magic Castle Juniors. So it was people like Dana Daniels and Kevin James. There was a guy named Jonathan Yarborough. He changed his last name to Pendragon. So all these guys were in this contest and they all came with their satin jackets with the Magic Castle logos, and me from little Victoria, BC showed up, slept in my van, and I won. And I went back and walked in, and Mr. Stratton said, how'd it go? I said, it went really well. I quit. And he was like, what? I said, had enough of this. I was a little more rude than that because I really wanted to burn the bridge. And I just quit. Told my girlfriend, Lori, that quit her job, that I got a gig. It was a 30-day gig at a mall called West Edmonton Mall. It's the largest mall in the world at the time. And I had nothing afterwards. So we had a month of living in a nice apartment, doing shows 3 times a day in a shopping center that was the largest in the world. And then nothing. For like 3 months, and then Christmas came, and then Christmas parties came, and I went, and it took me a couple of years to figure out the feast and famine thing. But yeah, that's how I started.
Well, you know what? One thing that you mentioned there, which I want to pick up on, is you entered the competition and you won, and you've continued to do that your entire career. Like you've entered, you've entered so many competitions. You've won. How many times have you won FISM now? Is it twice?
I have 5 FISM awards.
5 FISM awards.
Yeah, second most in history. Magic Christian has 6. They gave him a special one, a special FISM award for historian, which is well deserved for all his work and stuff. And it was funny because he and I used to joke back and forth, going, "We have the same amount." And he just, "Yeah, that's wrong." And then he got 1 extra, and I remember when he got it, I hugged him and said, "Remember, you're old. I've got plenty of time to get 2 more." I love him dearly. He's a very, very cool guy. I haven't won every award. I love what you say. And then I won. I did an interview just recently with a magazine, and the lady said to me, "So how many awards have you won?" And I said, "Well, that's a research question, isn't it? I mean, you can add those up. They're on my website. The question you should ask is, how many have I lost?" And she said, "Oh, how many have you lost?" I said, "That was my question. I don't have to answer that." I've lost a lot. I've got a lot of second prizes. At FISM, I have 3 second prizes. 2003 second prize for Micro Magic, and in 2006 in both Micro Magic and Parlor, I took second prize before winning the World Championship in cards in 2009 and the Grand Prix World Championship for close-up.
So how important would you say it is for a magician who wants to make a career for themselves in magic? How important is it to enter competitions, to get your name out there? I mean, would you say it's really important?
If you'd asked me that question 30 years ago, I'd said it was paramount, because it was the only way to get your name out there. Nowadays, you can get your name out there just by being on the internet, doing something controversial or doing something incredible. But that's never the reason I went into the contest. Competitions for me were never about testing myself against others. It wasn't about competing or beating anybody. I am a procrastinator. I'm a perfectionist and a procrastinator. Worst combination in the world. Nothing gets done because I want it to be perfect. And I have to set deadlines. And when I set a deadline, then wherever it is at that point is the perfect. And I will continue. That's why when you buy something from me, I have these little codes And everybody's, oh yeah, don't register because he's going to, sell you tons of stuff. I've never sold anybody on one of the codes. It's so that when I improve the trick, I can send them the new idea for free. And it's just me being the perfectionist in me wanting to take it the next step. And sometimes I go way beyond where it was and it becomes something absolutely new. And people go, you could sell it. I said, yeah, I know. But the fact is you already invested. So for me, when I went in the contest, it was to set a goal. When I went in the first one, I just wanted to see where I stood in the world of magic. I had my local club, the Victoria Magic Circle, IBM Ring 183, and they were awesome, but it was made up of such amazing magicians and they all shared their ideas and helped me to become something better. And I thought, with this product of so many people, I got to have something. And I just never dreamed, I'd win. I just thought, hey, if I'm in the top 10 out of, 30 people competing, I'm good. And I remember asking a Japanese magician, Jimmy Yoshida, he lived in Hawaii. I said, Mr. Yoshida, I'm a huge fan of yours. Would you take notes for me? And just tell me what's good and what's bad. And I did the same thing with Eugene Berger, who I didn't really know, but I asked him professionally if he would help. And the two of them came afterwards and they said, let's compare notes. And they both held up the notepads and there was nothing there, just the word winner. And I went, really? And they're like, long before they announced it, I was like, yeah, only if you were judges. And they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure. And I was like, it was a really good feeling. And then after I won, both of them came to me, go, here's what you need to change. And then they had tons of things to share. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because, you're never perfect and you never will be. And anybody who can't give you a note just is blowing smoke up your butt. But they were so good about waiting to make sure that I had that feeling. And then once I won and was euphoric bouncing around, they said, now let's take you down a peg or two, put you back. So when I went to the FISM, I'd done everything, IBM, SAM. I'd gone to Ron McMillan's, Ron's Day. All of those were just me just wanting to show my magic. And when I went to FISM, it was a little different. I worked for Norwegian Cruise Lines. And when I went the first time, it was just to see where I stood in the world. I just wanted to see if because I looked at the people like Fred Capps, Richard Ross, and just like, not in a million years. But they're not around anymore. So maybe there's, so I went, and when I took second prize, and it was weird because I arrived, I flew from the Caribbean to Canada. I thought I had a day before I was flying to Den Haag. And when I looked at my ticket, I realized because of the date, the time and everything, I had 3 hours at the airport and I just had to get on the plane. I was, oh crap, I screwed up. So then I literally switched stuff. My wife met me at the airport. We switched stuff right there. She's going, because I phoned and said, we're in trouble. And she goes, okay, blah, 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 blah. Gave me some stuff. I got on the plane. I flew to Den Haag. I took a train. I got there. It was a bed and breakfast and they were already closed for the night. So I slept on the doorstep. In the morning, the lady nudged me. She says, are you the boy from Canada? I said, yeah. She says, they came by yesterday asking for you. You were supposed to rehearse. I said, no, my rehearsal's today. Contest is tomorrow. She said, no, I think rehearsal was yesterday and contest is today. And I literally asked her, how do I get to the conference hall? Oh, you take this train. It's about 20 minutes away. I'm like, oh my God. I got there, walked in the door. The first two faces I saw were John Allen and Nicholas Einhorn. And John looked at me and said, wow, you look like crap. And I said, thanks. He said, I just, flew from one side of a country to the other side, then to fly from that country back across to Europe, and then from Europe through a train, and then slept on a doorstep, and then came here. He goes, I think you're on next. I was the second act on the first day. So I was scraping my face and trying to do my tie and get all ready. I had no time to be nervous, no time to even think about the act. It was just, and the act that went before me did a cups and balls where stuff crumbled and turned to gold dust, but things didn't go well for them. And they, as I recall it, they basically broke down on stage and ended early. And the feeling in the room was really low. And then they went, contestant from Canada. And I was like, oh crap. And went out and did my spot. So then I had 7 days of watching acts. It was,
gosh, whoa.
Well, the good thing was Norwegian saw it when I got back that I took second prize and, silver medal in the World Championship of Magic. And they gave me a raise and said, we're going to advertise that. And so when 3 years came around, they said, were you planning on going back? And I said, I maybe. And they said, well, we could probably help you a little with finances to get there. And I was like, oh, it's in Italy. Oh yeah, definitely. And so I went back and I competed in two categories, one for stage, the parlor, and one in close-up micro, thinking if I even placed it would be cool. And of course, taking silver in both, Norwegian came back going, please welcome 2-time silver medal champion of the world. And here's your pay raise. And I was like, love this. And yeah. So the third one was a no-brainer because I figured, hey, as long as I just end up in the top 3 or 4, Norwegian's going to give me another contract and more money. And they kept doing it. And that was over a 10-year period. I made a lot of money with Norwegian. They were like my family.
That's great. And what advice would you give somebody who's watching this that wants to win FISM? You are a FISM winner. What advice, if they want to put an act together? Because I think that's the hard part, isn't it? Trying to come up with something that's unique. Is there any advice you can give? Because one thing that I've noticed about your acts is they all have been completely different, completely unique, and that's why you've stood out, and that's one of the reasons why you've won. So can you offer any advice on that side of things?
So many people build a competition act. I never built a competition act. I did an act that I do in the real world. That's the first thing I would say, because if you look at the history of FISM and the amount of winners who have a competition act and where they are today, many of them don't exist in the world of magic, or if they do, they're not doing their FISM act. Everything I did was stuff that I performed. And for that reason, I can still perform it and I can talk about it and I can make a living off of the stuff I did. If you're going to put that much effort into an act, it might as well be something you're going to do forever and something that you can perform leading up to FISM so that you get all that flight time. Or as Lance Burton tells you, that you're Hamburg, finding a place where you can do the act over and over again. You get to do the act as you want to do it and then go compete. And if you win, you get to then continue to perform it, as opposed to building an act specifically. I'm going to compete at FISM. It starts small. Here's the theme, and it ends with a giant one of these, which is 90% of competition acts. And the problem with them is when it's over, they can say I won, but then they don't do the act, or it's not relatable to anybody outside of magicians. Having a couple of magician jokes, great, but having an act built just for magicians, not so cool. You're not going to work. And if all your goal is to get a trophy, go to a trophy shop. They're cheap. Or talk to Tony Hasidi. He'll sell you one. These are the places you can get a trophy. But if you want a goal, and your goal is to win the trophy, but you want something more than that afterwards, then you want to build an act that's for the real world, that is unique, clever. It doesn't always have to be fooling. I mean, fooling is okay. I don't think fooling is a major score on the FISM score sheet. It's just one of them, a level of mystery, right? But if you think you're going to fool come on, my first time, Tommy Wonder was one of my judges in 2003. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fool Tommy Wonder. Sure I am. It's like, no. Tony Shelley and Tommy Wonder came up to me afterwards. I made a small technical error, and it was just the smallest of little glitches. When I was reaching to show one of the cups, my cuff hit the middle cup and it tipped the cup so they could see the large load underneath. And the whole audience went, as a group. And I looked at the audience and said, you didn't think a big ball was coming? Where are you people from? Which is perfect for a FISM audience. Then I showed the big ball, but a second later, I showed it to be a solid cup. And Tony Shelley was positive that it was a mistake. And Tommy Wonder was positive that I'd set them up and that was purposely done to create that moment of wonder. And I wish I'd kept my mouth shut, because I said, no, Tony Shelley's right, which lowered me in Tommy Wonder's eyes and both their scores. They were both judges and they both went, oh, we got to change that a little bit. And I was like, shit, should have just shut up and said, yeah, good answer.
And one more question about competitions. What advice would you give when it comes to nerves? And this isn't about competitions, it's about performing in general. We do have a lot of people on this channel that are newer to magic. And we've had this question asked several times. What do you do about shaky hands? What do you do about nerves?
I wish I had an answer for it. I just had surgery because I've had a right hand that's been shaking for the last about 11 years. I found out I had a polyp underneath of my skin on a nerve, and it was just basically beating the crap. Anytime I tensed my body, my right hand began to tremble, and I couldn't figure out what it was. For nerves, everybody's going to be nervous. If they're not, they're lying to you. If you're not nervous at all and you really aren't lying, then you don't give a crap about your act and you should go do something else. That's my opinion. You should be confident. You should know your material. You should be able to do it well. And they tell people when they get nervous, that's a really good sign. It means you care about what you're going to do. And you should be for the first few seconds when you get out there. It's that adrenaline, that rush just before you walk on a stage, or where you wonder, is the audience going to love me? Is what I'm going to do connect with them? And as soon as it does, you forget all about that. Jeff McBride said it once. I don't know who he attributed it to. It's a doctor, somebody, but he said, it's okay to have butterflies in your stomach. Just teach them to fly in formation.
Love it.
I wrote an entire thing. I have a thing called Magician You. It's just a place where I write articles and ask people stuff. And I go to people I admire and ask them their advice. And one of the first questions was on nerves. And I asked a lot of people, and people like Lance Burton going, I'm always nervous. I'm like, that's awesome. Because, you know, if your heroes, if your mentors, the people that you really admire can say that, it's the ones who don't. For me, my shakiness, which I've had, comes from adrenaline rush. I get too excited. I remember in Stockholm, Sweden, I was the first act on the second day. The first day was all stage competition, and then I was the second day of them. I ran around the auditorium outside the building like 6 times, just burning off adrenaline. And I could taste it in my mouth because I knew that when I walked out on that stage, I was like a racehorse. When I do Shape of My Heart, if it's a solo trick, it's never great. And that's because there's just too much adrenaline coursing through my veins. I do Shape My Heart at the end of a show, and that's an hour and a half, and I'm exhausted by then. And when I sit down, there is no adrenaline left in my body. I'm just sweat and just relax. I'm like, so this has been grand. Here's what we're going to do. But when I'm asked to do it as a one-off, it's a really tough thing, simply because, you know, you're just trying to, you're like a racehorse coming out of the stall. You boom, and you're like, okay, breathe, try to calm down, think about what's going on, and it's just too much. So if I had any advice, it was like, embrace it as you embrace anything else. Accept that it's going to happen. Know that the audience that you're performing for only wants you to succeed. Okay, there might be 1 or 2 people out there that hate you, but in general, 99.9% of the audience is going to love you and want you to succeed. And don't disappoint them by disappointing yourself. Just go out and have fun.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Now, here's the thing. When you talked about FISM, you talked about how you've won at Micro and obviously also at Stage, Parlor. You're one of the, not many magicians do what you do. You perform at a very high level doing close-up magic. You perform at a very high level at stage as well. And, you know, you've performed on the biggest stages that there are. What do you prefer, close-up magic or stage shows?
Performing. I guess it all depends. I started my career, you know, as a birthday party magician. I used to say I was on the birthday party circuit. That was what I described. I worked the birthday party circuit. There's the Vegas circuit, you know, there's the Broadway circuit. I'm on the birthday party circuit, and I loved it. And then I did the comedy club circuit, and I loved it. Then I got into stage. I did bird act. I did a bird act with 8 doves, 2 parakeets, budgies, and an umbrella cockatoo. And I won everything that there was to win in North America and the awards with it. And I worked any place I wanted to, turned down some of the coolest gigs in the world. I got auditioned at the Moulin Rouge and the Lido in Paris. And I just, it just wasn't where I wanted to be at the time, but it was still cool to do. I loved all those when I was doing it. And then I did Grand Illusion. I mean, I've got a warehouse out there, 6-car garage that's got, you know, the origami and compressed and you name it. I've got the illusion out there, I think. It was built before 2005. I think I own it. And I loved it. But close-up magic to me was where I started. And I love that I can be so close to an audience that, so now with Hidden Wonders is not close-up, it's parlor, but it's close-up parlor. It's not parlor. They're, even during COVID, they're still 3 meters away from me, but I'm drawing them in as close as I can to that 3-meter mark just to keep them there. When it's over, the front row will be 6 feet from my nose, but it won't be just close-up magic. It will be parlor with elements of stage. My close-up uses lots of stage in it. If you've ever watched and studied it, you'll know I use a lot of blocking. And I use a lot of, that's why I think I fooled a lot of close-up magicians, because I use a lot of stage technique. And in stage, I think I fooled a lot of stage magicians because I use a lot of close-up technique. And by switching them, they're just not 2 fields that usually intermingle a lot. and by kind of going into each other's field. And now I've been playing with mentalism because I think that's really fun, but using close-up ideas in mentalism, which is even more fun.
That's awesome. And what advice would you give somebody? I tend to find, especially in the UK, but it's all over the world, that if you're a close-up magician, a lot of close-up magicians want to put a stage act together. It allows them to upsell a client and go, hey, you know, there's a lot of advantages of having a stage show, but a lot of close-up magicians are scared of taking that leap because, you know, there's a massive difference to walking on a stage in front of hundreds of people to interrupting a group of 4 people at a cocktail party. So what advice would you give a close-up magician that wants to put a stage act together? I mean, is it just buying some stage tricks, or is it getting, what would you say? What would you say?
Research first. Look to the magicians that you admire in the field, and not to copy them, just to research them. Look at what they do that endears them to you. Look at the type of material they do, and if it suits them or if it would suit you. And then do some research about material that will suit you, because there's a plethora of material out there, and you can make it unique to yourself, still using other methods that you've purchased. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's probably the way a lot of people do it. They curate material by going, I like that idea, but I think it would be better if I use this instead of that. So I buy it and then I switch it and I talk to the creator, and the creator goes, wow, why didn't I think of that? And you move on. So I would say, look at the people. I've always done it this way. I look at the people that I admire and I see what I like, the qualities in them. And then I see if those qualities exist in me, or there's something that I should be putting into me that would be genuine. Then I develop those qualities. Then I work on material that will fit to that character. And then flight time. You got to get out there and be bad, but you got to pick the right places to be bad so it doesn't end up on TMZ. You have to pick the right place where it doesn't end up all over the internet. I had a young magician years ago, huge producer now, books, I don't know, thousands of shows a year, and he's super great. But when he started, he said, I always want to be on a cruise ship. And I said, well, when you're ready, I'll get you on one. And then he said, really, who would we be with? And I told him, well, this agent is a real good person and they're dear friends and they trust my word. And when it's time. And about a week later, he phoned me and said, I made a mistake. And I said, what's that? And he said, I sent them an email and they booked me. I said, I would contact them when you were ready. He goes, yeah, I just thought that I would open the door so that when I was ready. And it's like, right. So when did she book you? He said, in 3 weeks. I said, good luck with that. He was like, what? I said, you don't have an act and you're not ready. And he goes, right. So what do? I said, who do you admire the most? And he said, oh, well, he listed people like Kevin James. And I said, great. Kevin's got plenty of material you can buy. just go to his catalog and spend everything you're going to make off your contract to get material that's going to suit you. And then you can start to develop it differently until it becomes your own. And he did. And he became his own character. He went on to huge success, so much so that he opened his own agency. And I worked for him for the last 4 years within his agency. But being able to curate from other sources and then make it your own is an important element. And if you can make your own material, take the knowledge you have from the close-up world and try to translate it into the stage world. A lot of close-up stuff can really translate easily into the stage world. Just needs to be amplified, just has to be modernized to be something that, will play. And theme-wise, all that can play a huge role in making it. And above all, be you. When you do close-up, you're just you. You're having a conversation, you interrupt 4 people, and you don't go, one day in Zanzibar, I saw this evil sword, right? So why the heck would you, just because you stepped away from a group of 4 and stood in front of a group of 100, would you go one day in Zanzibar? No, you wouldn't, right? So yeah, be you.
That is great advice. People buy you. And I went on social media and I said, hey, I'm interviewing Shawn Farquhar. Has anybody got any questions? And several magicians came back with one question, and you kind of touched on that there.
3 of clubs. Is that the wrong answer?
Yes.
3 of clubs. It's the wrong answer.
Definitely wrong answer.
I didn't tell her. 3 of spades. I didn't get my own right card. I'm so wrong.
It wasn't about a card, funnily enough. It was about your work on ships, because you have spent many, many years performing on massive stages on the most beautiful cruise liners that going all over the world. So the first question is, how would you, if you're a magician watching this, and maybe you're doing corporate work, you're doing weddings, whatever it is, how do you make that leap towards getting on the ships, which seems to be the holy grail for a lot of performers?
I think up until COVID, it was the holy grail for almost everybody, because it was food and board, and some of the finest food in the world, some of the nicest cabins in the entire world, with balconies, with some of the most beautiful ports, and they paid you. Wow, what a concept. And they paid you well. Now is the time. Work on your act right now to make it unique, because when they come out of this, the cruise lines are going to be in a really weird position. They've had these giant production shows, like Disney Cruise Line has, 30, 35 cast members and a backstage crew of another 10 or 15 people working to produce Beauty and the Beast and shows like this with $1 million background. But they can't mount them instantly. They're going to take time, because they have to reassemble the cast, rehearse the technical staff, then fly them out to the ship and break it all back in again. That's going to take months. While they're doing that, they still need to fill those nights. And the only thing I'll be able to film with is guest entertainers. So this is the opportunity for the young bucks to come into the scene, guys and girls who want to perform and be on a ship. If your act is ready when ships come back, you're probably going to get a test. I've told everybody it's easy to get on a ship. Absolutely easy. Mine was just a stumble. I had gone to, a guy came into Vancouver on a ship. I got on the ship by kind of convincing the people that he was meeting me. And I asked him, hey, how do I get booked on a ship? And he said, how did you get onto this one? And I said, I kind of fibbed to the guy. That's how you're going to get onto the ship. Said, oh, really? He said, yeah, just pad your resume. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. He went on to write a great book called Hustle, Hustle, which became kind of my Bible for a while. But there was a little too much hustle in the hustle. And I'm just not the guy that can, bull crap. So it didn't work for me, but I still use a lot of his advice. Anyways, I would tell people, if you want to get on the ship, start working on your material now. You need like 45 minutes solid A material for your main show. And you need at least 2 15 to 20 minute spots that are A material, no fluff, and not somebody else's material, and no hackneyed jokes, because the cruise director is your boss, and the cruise director has seen every act that's come on board. And if you're doing somebody else's material, he'll tell you. And if you're doing old material from the 1940s, he's going to tell you. And he or she really is the linchpin between you and the head office. I have a great story of a performer that I got onto Holland America, and I said, just talk to the cruise director. John's a really nice guy. He'll help you out. And so the first week I said, how'd it go? I said, I didn't hit it off really well with the cruise director, but I got 2 standing ovations. So there's that. And I said, okay, go hit it off with the cruise director, apologize, whatever. He said, no, he gave me some notes after the first show. And I told him, the show got a standing ovation. I said, go say you apologize and listen to his notes, and maybe even try them, seeing how he's been on a ship for 20 years and it's your first week. And he said, yeah, Shawn, but I got 2 standing ovations. And the next week he got 2 standing ovations. I said, so are you doing good with the cruise director? He said, no, but don't worry. I got 2 standing ovations. I'm solid. And it was a 6-week run. And after the 6 weeks, they never hired him again. And the reason is the cruise director just put in, act was poor. Nobody stood. It wasn't that entertaining. And the act said to me, but I got the videotapes of the standing ovations. I said, yeah, and the booker's never going to watch them because they don't really care. All they care is that the cruise director and you are a team working hand in hand for the betterment of the audience. And you just became a star who didn't care about that person who was actually above you, and you put them below you. And you didn't do it consciously. You just did it because your performance style said, hey, I'm a performer and I can do great. I had a note come under my door once. It was the very first cruise on Canard Princess. So 1983 would have been the May of 1983. A note came under my door and said, magician will not do the following tricks. And it listed a whole bunch: dancing cane, torn and restored newspaper, just a bunch, vanishing milk pitcher. And I remember running into the cruise director a couple of days later and saying, hey, I just want to tell you I got the note, and don't worry, I don't do any of those crappy tricks. Why do you have that list? And he said, those are the tricks I'll be doing.
Oh, man.
It was not a very good start.
No.
Turned out he was a magician, and he would do magic before every act except for the magician act. And he wasn't happy with it. So maybe be a little more guarded. To get on a ship, 40, 45 minute, good solid spot, 2 15 to 20 minute, good solid spots, good openings, good closing, and don't do a lot of magic off the stage. Especially don't do it in the dining room or in the bars. That's where the waiters and the officers are holding court, and you're a star on stage. They're a star everywhere else. If someone asks you to insist, sure, you do one or two in a bar, but don't turn it into a show. It's not about you. It's about those waiters and waitresses who are working hard to ingratiate themselves to the guests, just as you got to for a full hour uninterrupted. So much to learn. I would love to put in a book. I have read all the books, and there's some great ones. Stan Allen wrote one that was very cool. I've seen some that are just crap. There's DVD out there where you could they were teaching props that you could build to do with it. Yeah, there's a lot out there, but most of them didn't give you a whole story. I've been cruising, geez, forever, right? 36 years. 36 years. And at one point I was living 10 and a half months a year at sea. I raised my daughter at sea. She learned to walk and talk on a ship.
And I was going to ask that to you. I was going to say, I know that you're a family man and family is very important to you.
First and foremost.
How have you managed, because it's not just the cruises, you know, you travel the world for corporate events, you travel the world for conventions and lectures and lecture tours. How have you managed to balance those two aspects of your life?
It's precarious, but I always lean back to family first. If it's an event that I can bring my family with, they come. If it's an event that my family can't come to and it's going to be too long, I say no. Every once in a while, it's too attractive. I have a friend, David Lai, who's one of the best producers, if not the best producer I've worked with in the world. And David said, come to Malaysia. You're going to work in the world's largest casino on a huge stage. You're going to be hanging out with, you know, people like Ted Kim and One Gun and Joseph Gabriel. I'm like, yes, please have me. Yes. And it was like, how long? It'll be 3 months. Well, no, it was going to be 5 months. And I said, no. And he goes, it's 3 months. So I said, yes. It was like, we split it. Lana did the first 2 months and then I did the last 3 months, but there was no way I could go for almost half a year. But 3 months, it was like, yeah, I'll fly my family over. They'll hang out. We'll be in, it's got the giant shopping center and amusement center and everything. And once I got there, Laurie and Hannah were like, yeah, we just don't want to fly for 34 hours, but thanks, Dad. And I'm like, no. I miss you. Please come. It was like, still was a great experience. But most things, I put the weight. Money is not everything. I tell everybody there's 2 types of shows in the world. There's those for your soul and those for the mortgage. And I try to do more soul ones than I do mortgage ones, but just enough mortgage so that nobody, you know, takes my house from me. It's a way what it is. Family will be there forever. The career is just one segment of my life. Although I eat, sleep, and drink magic, and I can't think of anything else I do in my world. And everything seems to be involved back to it. I even told my wife when we got married, I said, remember that I knew magic before you. So that kind of makes you the mistress, right? She was like, what? I said, I love you.
But what's interesting is you've now come full circle, because you told me that you started off by having ticketed events in your back garden. And now you're in a situation, I want to talk about this, where you've got a theater and, you know, I know that you've sold out for like months, even in the middle of a pandemic.
Crazy.
Which is nuts. Why don't you tell us about that? And also, is that going to stop you? Are your cruising days over? Are you kind of thinking, right, look, this is successful, this is working, let's move on to another phase of my life?
I love everything I've ever done, and I don't want to give up any of it. If somewhere tomorrow some person said, hey, would you do a birthday party, and it sounded exciting, I'd go do the birthday party. I swear to God, I would. Yeah, I remember when I stopped doing weddings and a guy called me and said, hey, I want you to do a wedding. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of past that at the point of blah, blah, blah. And he goes, he started describing what the wedding is going to be. I said, and what's the date? And I went and did Ed and Kathy's wedding. And it was one of the best days of my life because it was for my soul. It wasn't about the money. Didn't feel like it was an effort. Is cruising over? I think it is for now. I'm going to miss it. When I walked away, it was really sad because I I reached a point where I thought it was time for me to write another chapter. Got a lot of pages to write in the book. I want to do something different. I need to connect again. I was connecting one-on-one with the guests when I met them after the show, but on stage, it just seemed like I was going through the paces, and I'd never done that before. And I just reached a point where it was like, hey, I actually have cognitive thoughts during a show. And that's wrong. I was always in the moment. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, tomorrow we're in Skagway and I'm going to be doing it. I was like, wait, back into the show, Shawn. And it's like, I didn't like that. And so I made the decision last August to just say no to a lucrative contract from Disney and go in a different direction. And it was interesting because Disney had a new person hiring, and they basically apparently weren't going to be offering me a contract for at least a year by their new system. And I was like, so let me get this right. I'm leaving and you weren't actually hiring. So that's kind of a yin and yang good moment for me. They're like, so then when I said no, they said, well, we have some dates. I went, no, not really interested at the moment. They went, oh, then they hired the new person, and then they let the new person go, and they contacted me and said, would you please come back? And I was like, wait, you weren't going to hire me. Yeah, I said, I'll come back for a couple of weeks, just so you remember. And then I did a couple of weeks and got really great ratings and went, and gone again. And then I opened up my own little place. I really wanted to connect. I didn't want to be in front of 1,500 people a night in the Walt Disney Theater, as cool as an experience it is. And some of my dearest friends work there, and they're just, yeah, the fans and the friends that I've made off of it are just unbelievable. In fact, fans have come from California, just flown up to come see the new theater. Before COVID, they were like, yep, coming up, see the theater, because if this is where you're going from Disney, it's got to be great. And I'm like, yep, it is. So I opened up this little 300-seat theater, and I picked a really kind of edge of the shady part of the city, because that's what I could afford for rent. Chinatown is this wonderful area in Vancouver, very historic. I picked an old building, but it was right on the edge of where the street and drug addicts are. We've got about a 4-block radius in Vancouver that's just filled with mental health issues, drug issues, prostitution, and a lot of crime. And I was right there. Like, there were 2 doors, and then it was right there. And so each morning, I had to shoo the people from the front door, sweep the needles, the excrement. It was very special. But it added to the lore, because nobody knew where they were going. Hence the reason I originally called the show Cabaret of Wonders. I wanted it cabaret style. And then people said, if you tell them where it is, they're probably not going to come. I was like, what? This is a scary neighborhood. I was like, oh, so we'll call it Hidden Wonders. And then I went, well, if we're going to call it Hidden Wonders, we have to justify it. So then it was like, well, if I put a theater here, it's going to get broken into on a nightly basis. But if I put a tailor shop here, no one's going to break in. And so then we made a fake Chinese tailor shop in the front of it. And then you went through the change room into the theater, which meant it was secure, because who's going to rob a tailor shop, especially with a purple suit in the window, right? Who wants a purple suit? And the excitement, the buzz that went with it. Oh, it's a speakeasy, like a real place. You don't know the address. You can't find out unless you book the tickets. When you book the tickets, you can only show up 10 to 15 minutes in advance. So there isn't a lineup out front. So it's not suspicious. Nothing more suspicious than 3 white limousines pulling up on one night and people in tuxedos and gowns getting out and going in. And the limo driver saying to my wife, where should we park the cars? And she looked at him and said, nowhere near here. It's like, that lasted right up until we had to close on March 13th. The government mandated down to 50 people. We were only at 30, but I just didn't feel it was safe. And I knew that the writing was on the wall. So I packed it in and said, if you want a refund, you can get a refund. We were 2 months sold out in advance. Well into May, we were selling tickets. And to my fans' credit, like 80% of them held their tickets, which is really cool. And then I sat at home and killed time and worked on ideas and started the book and all that. And then I tried to buy or lease the building that I was subleasing. It was being rented by another person. I was renting from them, and they gave it up because they couldn't afford it. And then I went to the city and said, I want it. And the city said, oh, you're the new leaser. I said, well, no, I'm already in there. Yeah, but you're new. You're going to be signing the paper. I said, yes. They said, oh, well, then you need to put a sprinkler system in. You need to put a fire suppression. You need to do this. You need to change the back door. and it was going to be like $150,000 to start, and then they would determine whether or not it was. So we had to walk away from my dream, and then that would be June. That was probably one of the most depressing months of my life, because I knew there was no place to go, no shows to do, nowhere to be. But I've never been one to let even the worst things get me down. I remember when my house burned and they stuck a camera in my face and said, "You just lost everything. How do you feel?" And I said, "Well, it's going to be the easiest move I've ever had." Right? I mean, you can look at things two ways, right, Craig? You can look at it as the glass half full or the glass half empty. I prefer to think of it as refillable. There's more than one option. People always see black and white, and there isn't. There are so many different. And so June, I started really like, oh no, why always me? And by the middle of it, it was, let's find a better place. And we were looking real estate. I'm probably the only guy in all of Vancouver that was, showing up wherever there was a lease sign and sticking my face up to the glass and looking in and measuring windows and doors. And they were like, in a pandemic. Yep. And then Lori found the place, and she found it on Craigslist of all things, not even like in a real estate listing. And yeah, I phoned the guy the next morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. By noon, we were at the building looking at it. By 5 o'clock, I signed papers for a 3-year with a 3-year to extend. So I put over $100,000 into it in a heartbeat. And I remember him looking at me going, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I was like, I don't like that you use the word middle. I prefer midst. Midst is a good choice. Middle sort of makes me feel like I got twice as much to go. It's like, it's not, yeah. Turns out he's this giant building mogul. He owns, I think, 23 buildings in the downtown core of the city that I'm in. And he owns 45 buildings. And he's really into history. My building is an old 1898 building that was built just after they had a great fire here. And so it's all concrete. It's got a secret staircase that goes down to a building that was underneath, that was originally there, that they built the other building on top of. It's really cool.
That's amazing. That's so cool. And I think what we have to learn from this is, I kind of talked to you about this before the camera started rolling, but you see a lot of magicians at the moment that are sitting at home feeling sorry for themselves. They can't perform. Oh, what am I going to do? It's woe is me. And there's always an option out there. And you're the perfect example. You had everything taken away from you, including your building, including your dream. And you just dusted yourself off and you said, well, let's make this happen. And I think that's a really important lesson for people to learn.
I think it's very easy to feel sorry for yourself. And everybody can then say, oh yeah, but you're Shawn Farquhar and I'm not. And I'm not them, which means they have things I don't have. Yeah, probably they don't have verbal diarrhea. That's a good thing. We all have our pluses and our minuses. And it's finding what your positives are and how to embrace them. I have a lot of friends who are going, well, I don't think I'll ever perform again. And I feel really sorry for them, because I understand that feeling, because I had it in June. It was like, wow, this whole world has just stopped. But then, okay, no one was going to hire me. So I hired myself. I found a location. I found a way to market it. I found a way to do it safe, where we're following all the strict COVID protocols that are in place by our BC health minister and the provincial government, by making it work. And I think it can do it for anybody, wherever they are. It may not be live at the moment, but I know people are killing it in the virtual market. And I know people that are killing it in the teaching market and writing, because life is still going on. And when you just feel sorry for yourself, that's just a party of one. When you start feeling good about yourself, it becomes a party. Everybody wants to cheer you on when you're trying. And after a while, if all you talk about is the negative, you're going to find they don't talk to you as often, because negative breeds negativity. I've tried to stay positive. There's always times, when negativity works too, but I've been a positive person. Even when you get haters, you just, okay, at least they're reading your crap, or they wouldn't know you're there. That's right.
That's it. And the thing is, I think that, magic is more popular now than ever before. You were telling me about how you've done research into people that are looking into coming to the theatre, and, more people are wanting to see magic than like anything, and you're fully booked up to the end of the year almost, aren't you? I mean, that's...
I am, right to December 20th. I've got a few open dates in December, but I'm booking. I just booked out December 20th, fully sold out. That's the last show of the year for me. It's crazy. Yeah, when the audiences are coming in, I ask them 2 simple questions. Well, I ask them 3. Ask them what they're celebrating, anything, weddings, funerals, divorces, whatever. But the 2 big questions are you experiencing magic live for the first time? And about 40% are saying that they've never seen magic before, which is really crazy when there's like a 60-year-old man raising hands. Yeah, you've never seen, like, nobody's pulled a coin out of your, nothing. How is that humanly possible? It's like, because I grew up in a family full of magicians. I mean, I asked for my allowance and my dad pulled the coin from my ear. Just what, it was normal. And the second question asked is how many have never heard or seen of me? And that's like 60%. It's high, which means I need a better publicist. And better SEO ratings. But the fact is that speaks volumes to the viewer that it's not me specifically drawing that audience. My magic is drawing the audience because my magic speaks for me, because those people go away and they become your legions that tell other people about it. But it's telling you that people want to come out to see live magic, even if they don't know who the magician is. Those are all positive things.
And the other thing is, obviously, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but the ticket price for your theatre, it's not like a $10 buy-in. I mean, you've put a $50 a ticket on it, which shows that people are prepared to pay that money. There's a perception in the UK, at least, nobody, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There's no money anywhere. Nobody's got any. Well, yeah, people have still got money. There's still money that people are prepared to spend. They just need to be shown what to spend it on.
Want to spend it on quality, and they want good entertainment. If they didn't want good entertainment, Netflix and Prime would be broke now, right? The fact is, people want to see live entertainment. That's why these Zoom shows are working. That's why YouTube is blowing up with so many things. It's because people are craving it. We are the lifeblood of sanity. Magicians have always been noted during crises. When you look at the Thurstons, the Blackstones, the Houdinis, always during wartime eras, during pandemics, these are the times when magic flourishes. I think it still holds the record. Wizard of Oz, Wonderful Wizard of Oz is the #1 box office movie, and then it's Gone with the Wind or something. Both fantasy stories built to make people forget about what was going on in the outside world and make themselves feel better. And that's what we do, even if it's only for a few seconds. So often magicians don't realize what impact we have. I've got countless stories. I had one at Hidden Wonders just before we closed. A guy sat in the audience for the whole show with his little, as we call him, a toque, a little snow cap on. And he laughed and he laughed. And at the end of the show, he waited to be the last person to leave. Back then you could shake hands, and he shook my hand and he said, I just want to let you know, and he pulled off his toque, showed bald head, and he said, I've just gone through the worst chemo in my life. And for the last 60 days, the only word in my head is cancer, cancer, cancer. Every conversation I have is about cancer, cancer, cancer. Are you going to survive it? Are you going to die from it? That's all I've been thinking about. And he says, I got to tell you, for 5 minutes, not a whole show, but for 5 minutes, I forgot I had cancer. And it just ripped me apart. It was like, what? He goes, you just let me escape for a moment. And I just want to say thank you. Gave me this huge hug, put his cap on and walked out like it was happy-go-lucky. And I was like, what? It just ripped me apart. But what a cool feeling. And to know that you can actually create some sort of impact like that, not even knowing you're creating the impact. Yeah, positivity, it goes a long way. If you're spending your time going, yeah, well, it happens because he's Shawn. No, it happens because I made it happen. And you can make it happen just as I did. It's not rocket science. Just have to find what your positivity is, what your power strengths are, and work with them. Find the new niche. Don't use the word pivot. I hate that. We're not basketball players. We're not pivoting. We don't know much about sports at all. We're just finding the new place, discover what it is and how to make it work.
That's very true. Now, I want to completely change subject for a minute because I have to talk to you about something else. We haven't even mentioned this, but aside from all your other accomplishments, you are highly regarded as a magic creator. But I've always felt that the stuff that you bring out, it's not like you see some creators that are bringing stuff out all of the time. It's like literally daily. It's like, right down, bringing this out. And there's a certain decline in quality a lot of the time. But you know, when Shawn Farquhar brings out a product, it's going to be good because yeah, it's true. It really is, because you don't need to, you do so much other stuff. You don't need to bring out a product. So
Yeah.
can I talk to you about, and obviously you own Palmer Magic. Can I talk to you about Palmer Magic and creativity and,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to do that. Like, how did you get into creating? How did you get into owning a magic dealer? How did that all come about?
I didn't think I was creative when I was young because I was surrounded by creative people like Kevin James and Greg Fruin. I remember sitting by a river with Greg Fruin having a beer. We put the beer in the river so it was nice and cold, pull out a bottle. We were drinking under an oak tree, and those little helicopters from oak trees dropped down. And Greg looked at me and said, if you painted those white, they'd be great for tossing up a bird because they come down like little wings. And I looked at him and said, screw you, and just drank my beer because I was like, I've sat under this tree 100 times and that thought never came to my head. But there are people that are uniquely creative and those that work on it. And the more I looked, I realized Greg and Kevin, they work on it. They're not just, oh, I got to create it. They have tools. Kevin was kind enough in Athens, Greece to show me he uses 3x5 cards and lays them out and how he works to create his new idea, the plot, the formula, and then tries to make something. And I started asking other people, and I found books like Whack to the Side of the Head, which is a great book on creativity. And I started using those tools, and the more I flexed my brain, the better it got. And by using the power strengths that I have, when I looked at a stage thing, I looked at it, how would a close-up guy look at it? When I looked at a close-up thing, was how would a stage guy look at it? And then I would come up with a dozen methods, and one would be good, but I would try them all. And I listened when my friends said that sucked. Okay, then it sucked. What made it suck? Not just that it sucked. What was it? And I build on it. I guess it was just challenging myself. I just keep trying, and I think anybody can do it. I think everybody has a level of creativity. It's just that it's stifled in most people because of the surroundings they're in. When I was young, I had a coach, Evelyn Kingston, and she used to say, "We're going to put on our green hat now. No black hats in the room." And I'm like, "What's that about?" "Green means positive." I'm like, "Yeah, sure it does. Okay, let's forget about the hats, Evelyn. Let's just talk about, what we're going to do here." No, green hats are good. But she was one of the most creative people in the world because of her little mind mapping formulas and hats that she wore. I couldn't do it. I tried. It just didn't work for me. And the whole concept just seemed out there. But I'll write down 25 ideas and then go through them and go, do I have solutions for these? Do I have methods? As I get older, working in my venue, Alex and Billy, two brilliant friends who are also, really great magicians, they'll go, "Hey, Shawn, let's do this." And I'm like, you know what? 20 years ago, I'd have thought of that a week before you two. It's like, just drives me insane. So yeah, there can be creative spurts and then there can be lulls. But when they're lulls, I just read more. I turn to my tarbells. I read the books of wonder. The more information you have, the better chance there is of you being creative based on the stuff that you've seen. Seeing other people perform and going, how can I adapt that to something that would fit who I am? Yeah, it's a tough little thing. But getting a magic shop was never my dream. I had a mentor, Jerry Andrews, and Jerry was brilliant, absolutely, and kind and honest. The nicest, most honest man you would ever meet. And when he passed, I wanted some way to keep talking about him. And my forum was lectures. And so I contacted this guy, Palmer Tilden, who had a company called Palmer Magic, and said, I'd like to buy wholesale the Omni deck because Jerry had taught me it. And I think it's one of the strongest pieces of magic he created. And for years, I was selling the Omni deck. And one day I said, Palmer Tilden, I said, it needs to be adapted a little bit. And he goes, why? I said, it shouldn't be out of plexiglass that scratches too easy, discolors when it's in the light. There's a better material, Lexan. It's like bulletproof. And maybe you could change the dimension just a little bit. And he's going, well, I don't know if Jerry'd like that. And so I said, well, let's talk to some of Jerry's friends. And we went and talked to his most prominent friends who all said, no, Jerry would go with innovation. It's like, really? Oh yeah, Jerry would move forward. And it's like, so then he changed it. And then one day he told me that he wasn't well, that he had Parkinson's and things weren't going good, and that he was going to try to sell the company. And I said, well, I'd like to buy the Omni deck from you. He said, I don't want to sell just the Omni deck. It's my best seller. I said, yeah, because I'm buying them. I mean, none of the other stuff was even selling anymore. It was like, I just want the, and he said, well, I tried to sell the whole company. And I had a price for the Omni deck that I thought was very fair, but I could never pay for the company. And so I said, well, when the person who buys it gets it, let them know that I'm interested in maybe buying the Omni deck from them, or at least continuing the wholesale. And about a month went by. I was sitting at a Denny's in Long Beach, California with Hannah and Lori. We were just hanging out for the day. Hannah was getting her ear pierced, and the phone rang, and I answered it, and it was Palmer going, I found a guy. It's very disappointing, though. He's already said he's going to break the company up, and that's very disappointing because I've collected some of the best stuff. He had, like, Paul Harris's screwed deck, Bob Koch's telekinetic timber, Michael Lamar's coin clips, and Michael Lamar's card on sealing wax. And this guy was going to job it all out to different people. And I said, that must be really depressing to you. He said, yeah, but and then he said, but I'm going to get this much money. And he told me the number, and I went, it was 2,000 less than what I was going to pay him for the Omni deck. And I went, 1 second, have you signed anything yet? He goes, no. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $2,000 more for the company. He goes, what? Oh, you want the company now? I said, if that's the price, yes. In fact, I'll give you $5,000 more. And he's like, really? I said, yeah, it's worth that and a lot more. And I'll tell you what, the icing on the cake, as long as you're alive, it'll be called Palmer Magic. And he said, sold. And I've kept a Palmer Magic even after he passed away. I paid for his funeral. When he passed, he had a wish to have his ashes at the Magic Castle. They denied it because they don't want to be a funeral or mausoleum, right? So he had his broken wand there. And just by accident, some of his ashes may have ended up in a wall at the Magic Castle.
Awesome.
Hey, it's a dying man's wish. Can't turn that down.
And yeah, go on, sorry.
Well, that's how I became a magic dealer. The next thing I knew, I was making telekinetic timbers. The Omni deck, screwed deck is my most recent one, because I want to innovate them so they're up to what, well, I don't have to do anything with Michael Lamar's card on sealing wax. It's perfect. I think it's the best in the world. And everybody seems to tell me that. I've got Slidini silks. I've just finished the original 3 bolts of material that Slidini actually purchased. And the lady who sews them, he taught her how to sew them. Angela's like in her 80s. And I said, just keep sewing. She goes, do you really need that many? I said, I don't want to be rude, but you're in your 80s. Just keep sewing. Is that wrong? She just told me she's teaching her daughter in her 30s how to do it. I'm like, that's good. Teach the next one, because I'll keep buying them from you.
That's just great. That's awesome. Oh dear me. Yeah, the last time we saw each other actually live and in person was last year. And if you remember, I bought 2 more Slidini silks off you and 3 more Michael Lamar waxes because they were just there and I needed, spares. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take this. So what's your?
So impressed by the reputation that Palmer's Magic stuff has. I just want to keep his reputation up there because I just inherited the reputation of all this great stuff.
What's your favorite creation that you've created yourself? Not the Palmer line, but you've created so many things. And for me, I'll tell you my 3 favorite. It would be the 3 that I do all the time. Number 1 would be your book test, your Sherlock Holmes book test, which I do on every stage, every single time I perform. Number 2 would be torn to pieces because it's so adaptable. And number 3 is the one that everyone forgets about, which is Matrix Express, which for virtual shows, damn. I mean, I close my virtual show on Matrix Express. Yeah, it's amazing. So
I can't tell you which one's my favorite. It's like asking me which one of my kids is the favorite, right? That's why we only had 1 child, so I didn't have to lie to one of them. They all have their pluses. They all have their minuses. I love sheer luck. I even love, if you saw, I did a 3rd appearance on Fool Us, and they thought I used the methods, but I used none of the methods from the previous ones. I used a top it instead of a pocket. I didn't use a cooler. I didn't use any of the stuff that they guessed. I just ran because it was the last day of filming just before the pandemic closed down the Canadian border. But everything I've created is special to me because of the stuff. I love all three that you mentioned. I love my C2W wallet. It's probably my go-to for just every day because it's my wallet. I carry it every day of my life, and I do dozens of things with it. I just released a small little group of 50 called C2W Elite, in which I just shoved all the things that I've done with my wallet all into a package and sold some just because save them time. I curated, like, it's got Seo's rainbow card in it. And so I put a rainbow card in, and a trick that I've never released, that I wanted to release, that I actually mentioned to you way back in Vegas that I was going to release and showed it to you. And you said, that's going to sell well. And then I never, ever released it because I could never come up with a name for it. It was, people would take their calculator and put in the first few numbers of the credit card, multiply it by the next, then divide it by the next. And when you turned around their credit card and rubbed the black stripe, the number that was in their calculator appeared on the black stripe. And then you shook the card and it went back to clear and you gave it to them. Their card, their phone. Yeah, so I just threw, because I've had them sitting for years. I've just never made a video to sell them because I've been busy. You think now would be the time. But I just took 50 of them. I made a YouTube video explaining the basic concept, not all the stuff, just going here. And I threw it all together.
What I like about your card to wallet is you see so many versions of the card to wallet being advertised, and they're generally no different. It's just like, oh, this wallet's now a millimeter thicker or thinner, or so. But yours is genuinely a completely different method that I've never seen before.
Yeah, that's why it was a good thing to add to the market, as opposed to, oh, it's folded on this edge or the slit is on that edge. It's like, no, this is a different concept. You can show a wallet completely empty and then the card is in there. And I've used it in reverse now. I do the lottery trick. And so I can open up my wallet and show a lottery ticket in one of the credit card slots. And then I then do the whole thing and say, remember, I show it one more time around. And now when I open it up, I can actually take the lottery ticket out and give it to them. So they see it before and after, which is the reverse of card to wallet. It's, but using the same thing. Yeah, I love it. I would put that, it's hard to put anyone ahead of them. They're all cool. I've got a lot of stuff, lots of ideas. Jealous King is just fun when I'm doing walk around because it gets people to laugh in little groups. My RSVP, my resealed verified pack, when I do that routine, it was closing shows because it's like the signed card and sealed deck from Penn and Teller, but it has a reason. It has a whole story of the cards slowly going back into order from suit to the actual numerical order, unshuffling themselves, then going back into the box, me dropping a card by accident on the floor and having to pick it up to add to it. It's like, it's got all those little subtle touches. In fact, I used RSVP's technique in the third Penn and Teller, which I thought maybe they'd catch, but they didn't. They thought it was the old method, which I was cool with. But I used RSVP instead because that hadn't been on the show yet.
That's awesome. And is there, from a creativity point of view, have you got other stuff coming up? I know you're really busy with the theater, but have you, please tell me you're still creating. And are you ever going to write a goddamn book? Because that needs to be done.
I'm working on it. And I found an illustrator. And they're really good. It's not all close up, like there's stage illusion stuff. Yeah, there's just a glimpse. People will freeze the screen and look at it. What the heck is that? So good. Yeah, I'm still working on new ideas, playing with stuff. I had a person write me and ask me if I would write something for their magazine. I hadn't heard of the magazine, but they had some nice contributors. And so I said, well, here's a couple of things I've published in the past. They said, no, can you do something that's never been published? And I was like, oh, okay. And so I pulled out some of my notes because I just keep stacks of notebooks and revisited some old ideas. And all of a sudden I had new stuff. This is fun. Want to see something cool?
I really do.
This is based on an idea from J.C. Wagner. Can use any playing card. We're using King of Diamonds. J.C. Wagner, I think, was one of the first people to ever do a torn and restored card. But he worked in San Diego in a bar and he wanted them to have a souvenir. So he didn't restore the card fully. He restored the card to 3 pieces so that it was unique as opposed to just handing them a folded card. I remember when I was young, I worked at a place called the Old Country Inn, and I would tear and restore a card up. And by the end of it, they would just leave it on the table because it was just a folded up card. JC thought if you leave one piece missing, there's a story behind it, right? So 2 pieces, give it another fold. So this is a handling of an effect that JC Wagner published, and he called it a torn restored card. I think it's in 7 Secrets by J.C. Wagner. And I just wanted to kind of update in a different way. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces here. We'll do this slowly for you. That's 4. We'll do it with 1 piece at a time. Start with 1 here, 3 here, and I just wiggle like this, and 1 piece jumps across. It doesn't just jump across, it actually like, it glues onto it. Can you see that? It's actually like attached. Yeah, so there's 2 over here and 2 over here. And if I wiggle again like this, it's like 3 fly with playing cards. Look, that one goes in here. So that's the, so this is the, this is still the king of diamonds. I didn't do anything sneaky, king of diamonds. I'll do this really slow for you. Just wiggle like that, and then it goes across. And you're left with these king of diamonds.
That is brilliant. That is. I've done the JC Wagner routine for years. I remember the first time I saw him do it, and he did it with a jumbo card behind the bar, and he could just drop the piece because it was a massive card. And that's 3 fly. It reminds me a bit of that Dingle routine that he did. Do you remember Derek Dingle's Matrix, where he had a card torn into 4 pieces?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Matrix, and as the pieces were going into the corner, they were restoring. It's like that, but practical.
But in your hands instead of on a tray.
Yeah.
I played with an idea years ago. It was going to be a matrix of the pieces. It was in my notebook. My original intention was to have like a picture frame with black velvet on it, and I was going to put coins on them, but it would be glass. So I said, I put the coins on so you know they're not moving, because when I drop them, you hear the clicks. Then I was going to cover them with the coins and have the coins move one at a time. And in the end, when they went to pick the coins up, they'd be all underneath the glass. So then I was going to tear the card into 4 pieces and move it, and it would slowly all move until 3 pieces were underneath the glass at the other side. And I would give it to them as a framed picture with 3 restored, 4 coins, and 1 piece in their hand, and send them home with a picture frame. And it was going to be like a finale for gala shows when I was doing like 20 or 40 people in a corporate situation for a gold ticket, as we call it, type of show. I thought, nice to give the CEO a gold ticket of 4 coins in a picture frame with the 3 pieces of playing card and 1 piece that he could just carry in his wallet and go, no, it fits right there. And then it was like, what a lot of work. I think I have an easier way to do this.
Yeah, that's great. So is that something you're releasing?
Yeah, I actually published it. It's going to come out in this magazine in the next month, I think. Elixir is the name of the magazine. And after that, once they've had it for a while, I'll probably publish it as a little download. I think this download thing is kind of cool. When I put out HG Effect, I never imagined it would hit like 10,000 downloads, because I only put it at $10 and people are like, it's the greatest thing ever for $10. But for me, it was like taking the any card, any number, and making it available to everybody. Borrowed shuffled deck of cards and doing any card, any number in a 3-phase routine, where the first time they tell you, the card and the number, second time they only tell you the number, and the third time they tell you nothing, and it still works out. Yeah, I think right now, if you were to ask me any of them, I would say HG really sits high in my world because of the amount of magicians I see performing it and really getting like their gold out of it, going, oh, wow, this just slaughters. And you can use it in the virtual world. I love this virtual world.
Could you perform it for us now?
I'll show you this. This is cool. I could show you HG, I guess. Can you see that? It looks red, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's because of the light. I mean, on this side, it looks black, doesn't it?
Yes.
But it's just lighting. That's what this whole video thing does. It's like there it looks red and there it looks black. See, if I tilt it like that, it looks red. When you tilt it like that, it looks black. Isn't that cool?
Yes. That is
over here it can look black and over here it can look red. But normally it looks, black. Well, that still looks red. But over here it looks, well, now it just looks red. Hold on, let me just change. Okay, so now it's black.
That is awesome. That is ridiculous.
I got a deck of cards. I have a deck of cards. I'll just use these. I don't think this is a whole deck. I need a whole deck. Guy without a whole deck of cards. We'll try it with this. This might be a whole. I may not have a whole deck. I've never been accused of playing with a whole deck. Do you have a favorite card?
I do actually, yeah.
What's your favorite card?
7 of Hearts.
Do you know where the 7 of Hearts is in this deck?
No idea.
I'll let you look. I'm looking away because there's a monitor. It's not on the top, is it? Because that would be really good.
Nope.
No. Is it on the bottom?
Nope.
Good. So it's somewhere in the middle. Look,
Yeah.
I'll even just put a card on top in case the bottom is now the top and the top is now the bottom. I'm just trying to confuse it. Somewhere in this deck of cards is your card. Is that right?
Yes.
Give us a number between 1 and 52.
19.
19. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Do you want to go back or you want to go forward? Do you want to stop there?
I'm going to stop right there.
100%?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is the 19 cards that you counted with me. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the card you picked was, I can't remember. What was it?
7 of hearts.
Oh, 7 of hearts. Okay. Good.
That's
Fun, huh? That's just one of the 3 phases. I like it better when it's in phases. The first time I ask them, what's the name of the card and what's your number? And then they count right to it. And the second time I say, pick a card. Don't tell me what the card is, but give me a number. And on the third one, I just say, think of a card and I'll flick through them. And then I say, just put cards down. You can put them in groups. You can take them from the bottom. You can take them from the top. If you watch the third Penn and Teller, I use the HG effect in the presentation as well. And they missed that. It was good.
Well, you know what? I want to talk to you about Penn and Teller, but before I do, is that available from Palmer Magic as well?
HG effect, yeah. Oh, that's like a commercial.
All of your, yeah. Well, no, it's just I know that there's going to be magicians that haven't seen that are watching this video that are going to be like in the comment, damn, where can I learn that from? So Palmer Magic.
Almost everything I've ever created, I offer to the community. It's just my way.
I remember I was so annoyed before we talk about Penn and Teller. I was so annoyed because I was off Facebook during the pandemic for a couple of weeks because I was so busy doing other stuff. And when I went on Facebook, I was looking at old posts and some video of you doing some crazy stuff with a bottle comes up. And I was like asking around, I'm like, where the hell, how is this possible? Where can I learn this? And people were like, oh, Shawn did an online lecture about it and taught it. I'm like, is he doing it anymore? And they were like, no, he only did what. I was like, son of a bitch. Like, I watched that video after you taught it and it was all said and done. That's the most incredible thing. The vanish and everything. That's the most incredible thing. And you know, I've seen a lot of magic. I've never seen anything like that before. That was ridiculous.
I wanted to test to see if instead of download, if I taught a session through a Zoom platform, if the secrets could be kept secrets. And they have. And most of them are performing. And I've seen literally the next day, Ken Scott was dropping a coin, the cap. He took the cap off of a Coke bottle and it dropped inside. Then he made the Coke bottle disappear. And I was like, I could never be more happier than to see people doing that. So many people have sent me videos going, hey, is it okay to post this? I'm like, post away. I'm enjoying watching it. I taught all my methods for my vanishing models because there was more than one. And I taught all the coin lock-in models and everything. I wanted to see if I shared it outwardly in that kind of a form, it would be secure. And it was. I think I did 6 of them, sessions with Shawn. And I only charged like $25. And it was 4 hours of my time just hanging out with them and sharing the ideas, the history of it, and then teaching one-on-one with each of them. So each person got to pop up on the screen and I taught. And I'll probably do it again, January, February, March, when I have a little bit of time.
Please do. Please do. Please do. Please do. Maybe tomorrow would be good.
I did one special for UK time. We had lots of people from the UK and France and Germany and Spain attend one. And
now
I did one
pissing me off.
I did one in the middle of my night for the people in Australia. I gauged them out nicely for people all over, just to be cool.
Now you're just pissing me off.
I'm sorry.
Well, I would love to learn that. I saw it. And you know, when you see something and you just can't believe it and you just watch the video again, I must have sat there for about an hour watching this video back again and again. It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. It was so cool.
Thank you for the views for my daughter's college fund.
No problem. Let's talk about Penn and Teller because you've got, well, I mean, firstly, you've done TV appearances many times for many years, but for some reason people think of, when they think of Shawn performing on TV, they think of Penn and Teller. You've been on there like 4 times now, have you?
Three appearances.
3 appearances, and like, it's incredible. I mean, they've done so many seasons, but everyone talks about your spots on there, and
the producers are really nice about it too. They say I've got some of the most requested and most talked about, which is really nice to hear. Yeah, I was the first act on the first day of filming when it was at Wembley Stadium in London. Andy Gladwin was in the audience, and he'll tell you that it didn't go as planned. Every time they introduced me, the screen wouldn't open, the doors, I couldn't get onto the stage. It was like they just kept going, please welcome. Jonathan Wasley was going, please welcome Shawn Farquhar. And then the door opened like 4 inches. I got my hand out and waved at 700 people, and they all laughed. And yeah, it was really fun. And so, yeah, and I was the first contestant to come out of the gate, and then I fooled them. And they stopped the production for a good half an hour. And Teller will tell you they had a big discussion about, is everybody going to be like him? Because they're all going to be like them. We're not really interested in doing this show. This is not good. Which was really fun. And I loved it because I got the opportunity to hang out with Johnny Thompson. And Johnny spent a lot of time with me, just telling me stories and making me feel good. It was really special. And I was in a room with a young couple that had I think they just got started. He'd met her through some penny saver ad or something. They go by the name of the Hijinks. Yeah. And there was a guy who was super nervous, but boy, his card work was great. Daniel
Madison.
That's right.
Yeah. He's gone on to dominate YouTube now.
He has. And for a guy who was very quiet and shy, and who was like, oh, just come to show him my stuff. And it was like, well, you got the chops, boy. We were just this wonderful little group of people all hanging out backstage on the first day. Of course, they separated the shows out, so we were all on different shows. But it was a really fun day of filming. Yeah. I all those experiences were great. The last one was so fast, though. The middle one was fast. For the sheer luck one, I'd agreed to come for, normally you fly in for 3 days, you film, you do interviews, you make your package, and then you do the show. And I contacted them and said, I'm going to have to bow out of this. I've got an opportunity to work for a prince on a private island off the coast of Madagascar, and it's going to pay for my daughter's, university for a full year. So I'm going to have to say no. And they're like, when do you have to be there? And I told them, and they said, we can film you in a day. And they did everything in a single day, just as they did in the first one. The first one, I was working in Paris, and I flew over for the day. I filmed, did the package in the afternoon, filmed in the evening, and was on a flight the next morning. It was only the third one I actually was there for 3 days. It was weird. And I didn't want to be there for 3 days because Vegas was shutting down because of the pandemic. And I just wanted out. And they were like, well, you can go in there. That makeup person's going to use all these brushes on you that they just used on the last 5 people. And I'm like, no. They're like, no. We got brushes for everybody. Thank you. It's like.
Oh, man. And did they contact you to have you come back on each time? Or
yeah.
Was it a case of Penn and Teller thinking, bloody hell, we're going to keep bringing Shawn back on until eventually we try and figure out something that he does?
Penn and Teller have no say in who's coming on. It's the producers. They basically do it. And I actually said no multiple times to the producers on the first one. I had no interest. And then it was finally one of the producers, Lincoln, said, well, Johnny Thompson said that, you'd be great for it. So we're going to keep. And I said, what's Johnny Thompson got to do with this? And he said, oh, he's the secret judge. I'm like, yes. When do we film? It's like, I just wanted to hang out with Johnny Thompson. So when the second one came, they contacted me in year number 2 and said, would I be interested in coming back? And I said, sure, why not? Because it was 5 years later. Between season 1 and season 2, it was like 5 years because it aired in the UK, aired everywhere. Finally came to America. And I said, sure. And they said, you got a trick that'll fool them. I went, sure. And they never called me again. And I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so enthusiastic. It's like, so the next year they said, hey, we're revisiting that thought. Maybe have somebody who's been on and fooled them before to come back. Would you come back? I said, sure. I said, do you think you could fool them? I said, I don't know. I'd have fun though. And they're like, oh yeah, let's have you on again. And so then I went on and fooled them. And then I didn't want to do the third one. And I actually have said no since season 4, 5, 6. I just didn't have an interest in doing it. Season 7 came around and everybody was like, oh yeah, they're gonna have all the foolers reunite. And I was like, that's great. I'm gonna bow out. And I did. And then I got a call from one of the foolers going, hey, they don't have enough. Two of them can't do it. One is on a cruise ship and the other one just said, no, they don't need to do it. And without you, we don't have enough to do a show. And I was like, yeah, but I don't even have a trick. And I really don't have a desire. I was working Hidden Wonders and I was loving every moment. I said, I am in my happy place. And they just kept asking me. Went to Vegas in January and the producers in the elevator were like, so Shawn, have you worked? And I said, well, I got some ideas. And of course I pitched them. They're like, oh yeah, well, I was like, yeah, I don't think I've got good ideas either. Not really. They're like, well, you'll have something by then, right? And I'm like, I don't know. Normally you send your audition tape and then you have to explain it. I didn't do any of that because I didn't have anything. It was about 3 weeks before filming, they'd finally convinced me to say yes. So I said yes. And they sent me plane tickets and everything. And of course, they didn't have any description. They said, do you need anything? I said, no. Do you need a table? No. Anything? No. Okay, what are you doing? I don't know. So what? I said, I'll work something out. I promise I'll get something. And Billy Schway, one of the guys that worked with me, he said, you should do a best of. I said, what? He said, do the book test and the card trick. I was like, that could be cool. And so then over the next 3 weeks, I worked it out so that I removed all the methods because I didn't want anything that they could fall back to any of the other things. And I went, well, I can use HG effect. That's kind of cool. I can use a top it. That would be neat. They won't expect that. I can make the, I used an idea that looks like Pegasus Page, but it isn't Pegasus Page. In fact, he hints in the solution, he says the winged horse. And what they cut out was me going, are you referring to the Pegasus Page? And he said, yes. I said, oh, then you're completely wrong. And they went, well, maybe we're just using the wrong term. I said, oh, no, you're using the right term. You're just completely wrong. And that all got edited out because that doesn't look good. But yeah, I worked out an entirely different thing that didn't use the book test because the first time they thought I memorized stuff, this time I did. Because I knew they weren't going to guess memorization because I thought, I'll go with the things that they go against. And so, yeah, I went with memorized. I memorized what I needed to, and I did it completely different, which was really fun. And then, and then I just kind of capitulated and walked away from going, nope, you got me. Because I just didn't want to get beaten up in the parking lot.
Well, he's a big guy.
He is. And they're such nice people. My big regret is I didn't get to spend any time to say goodbye to him on my third one. On the first one, we talked for a long time afterwards. The second one, they came in the hallway to talk to me and said, you never told us how the card trick worked. Please explain the book one. And I made them both take guesses. And then I explained it to Penn, and Penn screamed, tell her, come back here. You're going to kill yourself. And tell her, he told you. And then when I came back, you get to do the live show as like part of the prize. When I came back to do the live show, I did the commercial method, the method that you and I do all the time. Because as you know, the Fool Us method is different, which I give to everybody for free if they register. So when I did the show, I showed them the method that I did on the show. So when I came back live, I did the other method, which meant I didn't need a lot of things that I had for the first method. And Teller walked right over to me on the stage, said, that's not how you taught us, and walked away to go sign autographs. I waited in the dressing room, in the monkey room, and I put a book on the table, and he walked in, he looked at the book, said, I'm not picking that up. That's a sucker move. He's like, now, did you do this new method just to screw with us? I said, yeah. I said, well, congratulations, you screwed with us. He said, did I fool you? He said, yeah. I said, awesome. And then I showed him, he goes, you're like a little kid. I'm like, yep, just like a little kid. Just wanted to do it again. All really great experiences. Yeah, the producers are super nice people, all good to me. I was in a really weird place when I filmed the third one because I was away from Hidden Wonders. I was making the decision to shut down the theater. I didn't know where I was going from there. I wasn't paying attention, and it was nice to have the Fool Us little break of just, okay, let's just do this. And I helped a whole bunch of people with their acts. I think 6 this year that I helped them with their acts. And one aired last night, and I was laughing, going, they did a really good job. And it came from a drunken conversation in Vegas. I posted on their page. I said, see what great ideas come from hanging out, drinking with Canadians in Vegas. It's like my friend Alexander and I came up with the idea of the plot and the method and everything. And the performer took it and just did it really well. It was very nice.
That's fantastic. And that's one thing that I've always known about you. You are more than happy to share your knowledge and help as many people as you can. And that's always lovely to see.
I try to.
Yeah, you are. You're an amazing guy. You really are. We're gonna wrap this up, but I've got two other things to ask you. The first question, and I ask this to everybody I interview, and I want to ask you as well. What's next? Is there anything left on the bucket list? I mean, you've done so much with your career. You've won more championships than most people have got hot dinners. You've created magic. You have a magic dealership. You've performed in all over the world. You now have your own magic theater. I know you've talked about continuing the magic theater and continuing with projects with Palmer Magic. Is there anything else that you're wanting to do, or? Because let's be honest, if you just quit right now and you never released another trick again and performed and never showed, your legacy is set. It's done.
You think so?
Yeah.
That'd be nice. I think, like most performers, the fear is that you'll be forgotten when you're gone. That's why I've spent a lot of time talking about the performers that I admired once they're gone. I talk about John Gilland all the time, Tony Yang. I talk about Jerry Andrus, because they're people that really meant something to me. I guess the book is the next thing. What's next is it's not a trick book. It'll have tricks. It'll have lots of them, but it'll be stories and jokes, little anecdotes. I want it to be something that's a testimonial, not just to me, but to the people that made me. So it'll have wonderful stories about Tony Yang and John Gilland. I'm trying to edit a book. John was such a good person to me. He had a photographic memory, just a genius. And when he passed, his wife gave me his library, and I discovered a box 4 years ago. He was writing a book, and he's even got self pictures and everything. And so I'm trying to edit his book first to get it finished, because I really think that it'd be nice if Corinna saw, that John's book is out there. And that other people can learn what I knew about him from the start. He wrote over 250 magic tricks for Abra for Good Life's magazine.
Yeah.
And 250. And he belonged to the same rowing club as Alex Elmsley. His life is like paralleled so many great people and all the stuff. He came up with the original tummet, not the toppet, but the tummet, because he was hanging with the people who were using the toppet, and he was like, I think it'd be better if it came off the cummerbund. And he created an entire thing right off the cummerbund. That's really cool. It's like, yeah, but he was the master of the toppet as well. He was, really great. So I think a book might be the next to get it finished. I sat down, I've got more than 25 really cool effects in stage, close-up, parlor, mentalism, children's magic. So I'll put those all together and add the stories and try to tell the story of my life, but not have it as a biography. My friend David Charvet is a noted historian writer who does biographies, and he told me years ago, he said, when you die, I'm going to make a lot of money off of your stupid stories. I'm like, that's awesome. I watched Howie Mandel last night. There was a documentary on him. And it was wonderful when they said, can you name some of your most memorable moments? And every moment he mentioned was a bad one right after the other of bad moments. And I thought, that's really cool, because that's humbling and gratifying for an artist to not hear, oh yeah, I performed for the Queen of England and I did this one and I met Nelson Mandela. Yeah, whatever. Some people get those great accolades. But for him to say, oh, I remember being introduced to do a show for survivors of the Jewish Holocaust. And then I came out just after they said, let's have a moment of silence. And now Howie Mandel. And he started telling a few jokes. And the guy in the front row said, enough with the jokes, start singing. And they thought he'd hired a singer. For me, it was so powerful to hear him say that, because so I want my book to not tell all the glorious things. Somebody else can tell those. I want to tell the stories that people go, wow, why did he bother to share that when very few people would know it? But I think when people know it, it will all help them to be better.
Absolutely. I completely agree. That's amazing. That's great, Shawn. That's fantastic. And this has been an amazing interview. And we're going to wrap things up now. But before we started rolling with the cameras, you said that on this interview, you wanted to talk to me about sponge balls, because I put a little rant video up on this channel very recently Room 101. What would I put into Room 101 and get rid of for the magic community? And I said, performing sponge balls to adults. And you were like, you took such exception to that. So let's debate that before we finish this whole thing off.
How can you take away the greatest effect in the history of magic? You know, I understand your point, but I perform it on the stage with an adult on the Walt Disney Theater stage for 1,500 people, and it's rock solid. Yeah, I add material to it. I have a light and heavy chest, and I do. If you've ever seen Stephen Bargatze do the sponge balls, he picks adults, and it's without a doubt one of the most crowning moments in his whole show. Palmer Magic's going to release his sponge ball thing soon. I didn't even think of that. We're going to release it. I'm just trying to find a way. He has the most amazing little net that pops out, and I want to make not sponge balls, but little Nemos. So there'll be little fish, so that then the fish can appear in the fishing net, which I think is cool. For me, there is nothing more magical than magic that takes place in the spectator's hand. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I used to perform origami and sponge ball in the same show on the Norwegian Star. I would take a $10,000 prop, put a girl into a box, fold her down, stab her with 3 swords. It would rotate on a rotating platform with moving lights coming down with a dragon backdrop behind it. And it got really good applause, and it was theatrically gorgeous. And it got half the amount of response that the lady holding the sponge ball, and it became 2, and her freaking out. Half the response. I know that the perception that you see is, okay, when I walk up to people at the table and they open up their hand, they're going to say, oh, my kid's done that. That's going to happen with anything. But when you finish the effect and they see what you've done with it and how you've handled it, they're going to know that what they saw was a kid with a sponge ball, and they saw a magician mastering something unique.
Yeah, I can't really. Come on, if I was having this debate with anybody else, I could maybe put some sort of argument together. But you're Shawn Farquhar, for God's sake. How do I argue with you?
I remember a guy arguing with me and saying, yeah, well, when the agent sees the picture with a sponge ball, he's not going to hire you. And I said, then you don't want to be hired by that agent. Because if the agent is booking you based on the material you're doing, you've got the wrong guy representing you. Because your agent should be representing you. You know that you and me can both go out and do that book test, and we'll have 2 completely different reactions that are solid and strong. And nobody's going to want to hire me over you once they've seen you. And no one's going to want to hire you over me once they've seen me, because they want you for what they saw and how great it was. And it's not that the trick, it's you. I've seen some of the best magicians in the world do some of the worst magic in the world because they tried to pick something that was great when they saw it in somebody else's hands. Sponge balls is one of those tricks that's great in everybody's hands. If the kid can take 1 ball, put it in your hand, and it becomes 2, and people freak out, that's still pretty cool. When you do it masterfully and you add all the right talk to it and you set the mood correctly. I worked trade shows and I tried every gimmick in the world. Hey, want a free flashing? Hey, hi, can I stop you for a second? Would you like an opportunity to win $1 million? Tried all that. You know what worked the best for me, Craig? I had a black sponge ball. And as people walk by, I say, you got something on your jacket. And they go, what? I said, on your jacket. They go, what? And I reach over and I pull on it a little bit and then pull out and say, oh, it looks like the top off the microphone. Were you just at the speaker? And they go, yeah. I said, I think you stole the top off this microphone. You should go give that back to them. And I put it in their hand. They go, I don't want it. I said, I don't. Well, I'll just get rid of it. And they go, whoa, wait, where'd that go? And they go, what? I said, where'd you make it go? I said, I didn't. I said, what are you, some kind of magician? And they go, no. I said, oh, then I must be. And they would just be sucked in. And I had them long enough. They go, do it again. Sure. Let me just get off your jacket. And I pull the black sponge ball off, turn it to a red one, and go into a full red sponge ball routine because it was bright and colorful and people would gather around. With a sponge ball, I could draw a crowd of 600 people.
I will tell you, I do a show with my son, Ryland, and
I love him.
He's
Absolutely.
So it
brings so much joy to me watching him and how much joy he brings to magic. It makes me know that there's another generation ahead that's going to be awesome. Let him know that, please.
He's obsessed with it 24/7. And we do a show together. And just before lockdown, we did a show. We did a half-an-hour show. It's for like a corporate audience. And he, as part of the show, he does Patrick Page's sponge ball routine flawlessly. So he did the whole Patrick Page routine on 2 adults that came up. He did the whole thing. I did a whole bunch of my favorite stuff. Some of my best stuff, like, you know, like you do this as well, you know, the handkerchief in the bottle. I was doing that sort of stuff. Like, I was doing good stuff. And afterwards, people were coming up to us and they were just like, oh, can you show us that bull trick again? They were going past me. They wouldn't want to speak to me. They were going up to Ryan and going, oh, do that again. Tell me about that. And so
it speaks volumes. What we know and what the audience wants are not always the same thing. And it's because magic doesn't take place in our hands. It takes place in the minds of the spectator. And what they experience with the sponge ball is really magic. It's visceral. It's in their hand. It's physical. It's a moment. When it opens, there's a reaction. Everything about it is just special.
Okay. I'll rescind the sponge ball thing from room 101. You're literally the only person that can convince me. Okay, I'll
caveat, must practice a lot.
I think my kryptonite is Canadians, because I remember a few years ago, I gave a really bad review to Ultra Gun by Richard Sanders. And then I sat down with him and he was like, let me talk you through this routine on camera. And it was back in the Wizard Product Review days. He was like, let's go through this. Now, what do you think? And it was the only other time other than here where I had to go on camera and go, actually, okay, you're right. I'm wrong. I think Canadians are my kryptonite, I think.
Well, we're just polite in the way we debate. I like his, let me walk you through this.
He was so nice about the whole thing. It was funny. It was funny. Awesome. Shawn, it's been absolutely amazing having you on the show. Thank you so much. It's like I said at the very, very beginning, you're somebody who I have so much respect for. Not just me, but the entire magic community looks up to you. And, you know, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Craig. It's absolutely my pleasure. I was thrilled when you asked me to come, and I look forward to watching the entire series.
Oh, thank you so much. And if they want to find out more about Palmer Magic, what's the URL so I can put it down at the bottom?
PalmerMagic.com.
PalmerMagic.com. And if anybody is in the Vancouver area and they want to come to the show,
HiddenWonders.show. I was clever. .show. Nice. HiddenWonders.show.
Well, you are. Well, we talked about Ryland. Genuinely, you're one of Ryland's favorite magicians. I told you last week we're about to review Torn to Pieces, and he's practicing it over and over again because he said, I said we filmed a review show last weekend, and I said, come on, let's do Torn to Pieces, and he said, no, it has to be perfect. So you know, he's
really cool.
Yeah.
When I hear you told me that, and within an hour, I read an email from another magician saying, "Hey, I'm a huge fan. I'm wondering if you could send a picture of you dressed the way you like to dress in a magic show, because my son is going as you for Halloween." And I was like, "I love it." I said, "That's a scary costume." That two young people on the same day were talking about an influence of me and magic really makes me feel like maybe my reach has gone far enough that some people will remember some of the magic. Torn to Pieces is just so cool. I can't wait to see it in Ryland's hands. It's great. I did it just the other night for the SAM had a Magic Week video, and I did it with a picture of Houdini and say, I'm selling this picture of Houdini. And it's even signed. It's like.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So many things to it. I have a friend who does it with a dog. It's the best because he says, people always come to you and say, hey, can you show me a trick? And they go, I don't do tricks, but my dog does. Would you like to see a picture of my dog? And then he does the trick. And I'm like, that's so good.
Well, Ryland's doing it with a picture of his sister because he does illusions, and his 5-year-old sister goes in the boxes. So perfect. He's talking about how when he's on stage, he saws his sister in half, and let me show you what she's not here with me right now, but here's a picture of her. Let me show you what I'm doing. So
that's great. See, that's what makes it such a great, I think, effect is that every magician can put their own spin, presentation, and make it something uniquely their own.
Yeah,
Love that.
It is amazing. And you can just keep it in your wallet and just take it out whenever you want to. You can prep a whole bunch the night before and have, instant reset. I love it. I love it. I remember giving it such a great review in the Wizard Pro Review back in the day. And, that's why I want to review it again now, because I think there's a lot of magicians that over the last few years, because
go
of that.
for the new and shiny stuff, and they forget all the stuff that's gold.
Yeah.
It drives me insane. People go, well, now that it's been out for like, is it discounted? I'm like, why would it be discounted? It was the price that was great was then. It's still that price now. They said, yeah, but it's been years. I said, yeah, but that's because the other magic doesn't survive time. So they needed to discount it. The stuff I have, like telekinetic timber, it's the same price. And the cardon ceiling, same price. Screw deck, same price. Why? Because it holds its value because it's really good magic. It's like, you know, Stephen Bargatze's wallets, the I Hate Kids. Oh my God, it's gold.
Amazing trick.
Yeah, and his I Hate Card tricks. People go and say, when will that be discounted? I said, when I die, because I put it at a fair price. I can't discount it. I lose money. If I discount, it's just what is a good price because it's great magic. And it holds the test of time.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And I think that, you know, I'm not going to get on my soapbox right now, but I think you are right. There's so many magicians that don't look at the past and they just look for that latest thing that's come out. And, you know, so that's why we want to review Torn to Pieces, because there's a lot of magicians that don't even know what we're talking about. This conversation doesn't make any sense to them. And they need to know about this trick because it is so good.
And perfect for the virtual world. When I finish my shows, I put pictures so that people can pick one. When it gets closer to the screen, they realize that it's a person in the audience because I know who's going to be in the audience from the ticket sales. So when I hold it up, you hear one person go, oh my God, that's us on our family trip. I'm like, no way. I just randomly put in Crew's picture. They're like, that's us. Then when I tear it and restore it all weird, I get them to name what the word's going to be, which is really fun. A lot of people put joy or hope. Hope seems to be the most popular. I write it down. When it's done, I mail it to them. So they get this wonderful little souvenir mailed to them of the photograph that was in the virtual show. And they feel this connection that they wouldn't get any other way.
That is beautiful. That is amazing. Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's available right now from Palmer Magic. You go buy it. Don't wait for the review. Just go buy it right now. You really need to.
For the rush.
Exactly. But no, seriously, Shawn, thank you so much one more time. And whatever you carry on doing over the next few weeks and months and years, I know you're going to be a massive success.
Thanks, brother. Keep well, safe and sane, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, next Tuesday, we've got Justin Miller. So there you go, Justin Miller. Couldn't be more of a contrast to Shawn Farquhar. But
I love Justin, though. His thinking and creativity is incredible.
I know. I'm filming him tomorrow night. And he'll be the week after you. So yeah, and tomorrow I'm back with another review show with Ryland. So we'll try and time it so we do Torn to Pieces the day after your interview goes live. Awesome stuff. Thanks very much. We'll see you again. Subscribe to the channel. Bye, everyone.